Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wa al-aqibatu lil-muttaqeen, wa la udwana illa ala al-zalimin, wa salawatullahi wa salamuhu ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal-mursaleen, Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma la sahla illa ma ja'altahu sahla, wa anta taj'alu al-hazna idha shi'ta sahla. Allahumma a'inna ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husna ibadatik ya Rabbil Kareem. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Right, folks, I hope everybody's well. I kind of feel that last week that I think I got sucked in too much to the fact that, people obviously faced up with the whole chapter of traveling, which is always a favorite with people. There's so many questions, so confusing, so many different opinions. And so as soon as we started, we just started taking in too many different kind of angles, and I think I kind of lost track and didn't cover some of the kind of more, it wasn't very structured. I kind of feel that. When I kind of look back and I think to myself, did we cover stuff? Did I mention to you that the mile is something which is not a, did I mention the word mile is different in different languages, different people, cultures, historically?
You referred to the fact that it's a little bit over a mile.
That's what I said. Yeah, so I want to double down on that, because I think that is important as part of the overall appreciation of the fiqh of this issue, right? Because if you remember towards, I guess, we finally got to making the point towards the end, just how flexible this is, and then we were kind of throwing out examples and people were saying that's a travel, that's not a travel. And when you've got the ability to be able to just do that, it's almost automatically indicating that there is some kind of level of ease intrinsic within the system. So I want to add to that, but I want to add to it in a more structured fashion. So we said that it's let's go with an attempt at a translation. We didn't even have the Arabic, do we? Not even the Arabic, yeah? I don't think so. All right. So again, I haven't got a text for this. Just yet. Frankly, we're spending the first couple of days, maybe even the next week as well, on just 2 lines, because there's a lot of content to cover just in those initial statements. But anyway, so the chapter is the في قصر صلاة المسافر, or the shortening of the prayer of the traveler. Whoever undertakes a journey, a permissible journey, of the distance of 4 burud, plural, singular barid, distance-wise, it is the sunnah for him to shorten the 4 units to 2 units. And I think that's what I would have translated last week. And I think that we won't go past that again today either. But if we do, إذا فارق عامر قريته أو خيام قومه. If and as long as he leaves behind the inhabited areas of his town, village, area, or the tents of his people, their setup, their settlement, their camp, the tents of his camp. Yeah, that's probably good. But we're not going to get to that. All right. Now, we spoke about this idea of what safar is conceptually, the word itself. And I really think it's useful to understand this idea that when there's isfar that occurs, the situation has become clear and obvious and bright and undoubted. And that linguistic little gem really helps us to understand that you've got to be kind of moving out of the norm of your comfort zone and your hidden zone and your getting away with whatever you normally get away with zone. And that once you're out of your comfort zone, that's when we're exposed to the rigors and the realities of travel, which are normally a headache and, everything that comes with it. There's just always discomfort with whatever form of travel that you take. I think I look back to the last 10 days I've traveled on every major way other than an animal, right? In the last just 10 days. So it's like super fresh in my mind, of all classes. Like really bustle, busy, bus, very basic train, an empty train. I just came up on an empty train, being driven, driving, plane, both classes, upgraded, didn't upgrade, everything. I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, every single aspect of those journeys was a pain in the backside. Some way or the other. Either because I was alone, or because I was cold, or because I was uncomfortable, or because the seat wasn't reclining, or because there was too many people speaking too loudly, or whatever. And that's when we spoke about the fact that when you're taken out of that comfort zone, people get to know you, you get to know yourself, the situation is now absolutely clear. That isfar, that safar, linguistically, of now becoming clear, I think is a really beautiful way of understanding the concept. All right, that's fine. The problem is, well, it's not a problem actually. The blessing, I should say, is that neither Allah and neither did the Messenger ﷺ specify the distance that is required for that to be achieved. We go further. In his actions and the actions of the companions and their statements, and then the actions and statements of the Salaf, we see enough laxity and variance in the practice of this act to indicate that this is a feeling, a mood, a vibe, and the like. Which is great to give to a responsible group of adults. And it's not good to give to a group of Pakis today. They all bottle it, and they're like, listen, as we said last week, isn't it? We said that don't give us all this authority. Just tell us 49 miles. Tell us 80 kilometers. Just give us a figure. Let's keep it simple. Tell us how many days. Let's keep it simple. I got a phone call from one of my very good friends. He coaches the England under 19 cricket team. I mean, just look at this. Yeah, he's a senior guy. He's like about 40 years old, and used to play cricket for England back in the day. And he goes to me that they've just arrived in India, and he says to me that a player, one of the Muslim players, has come, and the camp is for 20 days, I want to say 21 days. Yeah, 21 days, he said. And he said to me that the one of the players, one of the ones that he's training, has come, and he said, yeah, I'm praying full because we're staying here for 21 days and 15 days is my limit. So, but I'm not sure. I think what I do is that I pray shortened prayers for 15 days, and then from day 15 to day 21 I pray the full prayers. That's how it's going to go. And I thought that I was meant to be just praying the Qasr prayer all the way, and we're in one location and we're not moving anywhere, we're not going anywhere. So I was back and forth with him, trying to understand, his living conditions, where they'll be training every day. Is it touring the country? No, just one ground, back to back and thingy, and this base here, 21 days, going to play back, like that. And in the end, I told him to correct the kid, or the young man, the young lad, whatever, so that he actually follows what he believes to be the Hanafi opinion, which is that he should be praying full from day one, if that's the opinion that he is following, and it's a valid one. Yeah, it has no evidence whatsoever, just like our position has no evidence whatsoever. Our position, I said to him that you can pray qasr all the way, don't worry, for the whole 21 days. The nature of the way that you're getting food and security and X and Y, and out of this hotel, living out of a bag, blah blah blah. This is as journey as it gets, as musafir as it gets, as whatever. It's not just my parents, by the way, that when they want to show a bit of love to you, they say, miskeen, musafir. Yeah? Musafir is used as the bichara phrase, isn't it? Yes? It's a pack thing, isn't it? Right? So instead of saying bichara, they say musafir, bacha, whatever. So it is even in culture, we understand that the word musafir means that he's going through some kind of mission, right? So there's absolutely no doubt. Being in a hotel room is azab in itself. I don't care what luxury, what penthouse you're living in. It's an azab it is to be away from home, 100%. Anyway, so the fact that the time, 3 days, 4 days, 20 prayers, 15 days, 14 days, the distance, 48, 50, 38, 58 miles, I've not even got to kilometers. Kilometers, 77, 78, 80, 82, 88. No distance in terms of kilometers, but just the distance between Jeddah and Mina, which is about 80 odd kilometers. That used to be the opinion of Umar, or that's what he gave as a statement. All of these indicate that there is nothing clear from the Prophet ﷺ. Anas in Hadith Bukhari, he said that I was with the Prophet ﷺ and he prayed 2 rak'ah when he traveled 3 miles, and he prayed 2 rak'ah when he traveled 3 farsakh. And we covered last week that farsakh is how many miles? 1 farsakh? Anyone remember?
3 miles.
No. 4 miles, right? And was it 3 miles? I think it's 3 miles. Sorry, it is 3 miles. 16, 20, 12, yeah, 3 miles. But 3 what miles? 3 Hashimi miles, right? So I was looking into this a little bit. You know that there is a Hashimi mile, there's an Umayyad mile, there's an Uthmani mile, there's the Persians, where the word farsakh comes from in its thingy. You know the word farsakh? It's the English equivalent of the word league. I don't know if you ever remember back in the days. What's the thingy leagues under the sea? What's that called? What's the book called?
20,000.
Leagues Under the Sea?
Yeah, 20,000 leagues under the sea.
Isn't it? Yeah? Yeah. So the leagues itself is actually the actual word farsakh, right? So this is now moving into the area of politics. And again, what we got here, and the fact that they can get away with that indicates again another sense of the flexibility of the subject. I mean, they couldn't get away with, of my version of Fajr, your version of Fajr, that version. Fajr is Fajr, right? But when it comes to distances and things like that, yeah, I'm not going to lie, there must be some advancement in technology in the way that they were measuring distances as well. So you look at each Khalifa, you know that historically, don't look at the time now, back in the day, we were world leaders in literally everything, especially math, right? And so it wasn't just a case of, just let the ummah, get in with just do what they do. The khulafa, 200 years, 500 years, 600 years, were like, we need the whole circumference of the earth done. We need to measure the distances of this done. We need to understand the movements of sun, earth. We need to work out blah, blah. Like they were on it, proper, right? And so there's no doubt that there was a love of science and technology, and they wanted to go for that. But also there is the politics of it. People want their name and their authority to be remembered, right? It matters. And when people and we see that all the time. We see in our ummah right now, we see that a lot. And it's unfair to always pick on Saudis, but let's go anyway. But they're the easiest example. Each one trying to outdo the predecessor, feel a little bit of, everybody recognizes this as Fahad Gate. Well, you know what? We're going to make Abdullah Gate. It's going to be twice as big. You know what I'm saying? This is a standard system of people, and they want to be remembered, and they want it to be kind of recorded forever. There's a measurement. So I'm gonna have to trust Wikipedia on this, okay? Which isn't the best of principles, but if we go with the concept of the mile, yeah. So for example, there's a mile called a statute mile. The word statute mile is basically official mile. And that's what's used in modern day UK and America, and it's 1 point, I want to say 6, 1 second, I want to say, such a nice table I found. Yeah, here it is. It's 1.609 kilometers, so 1,609 kilometers. Yeah, that is the UK that's the UK and US statute official mile, and most English countries as well. But just to give you an idea, the Roman mile, which was one of the very first early miles that they're measuring, was 1.48 kilometers. The London mile, which was early times, was 1.524 kilometers, right? The Persian mile was 1,500. The nautical mile, which is an international actual fixed standard, so a nautical mile is a standard which the whole world accepts, and they call it a nautical mile, is 1.852 kilometers. The Uthmani mile was 1.894. Now, the reason I want to speak about the Uthmani for a second is that the Hashimi and Umayyad and Uthmani, and then later Turkish, when they wanted to become secular, non-religious, so the Turks went with 1.853, they reduced it a little bit, okay? All of them are between 1.8 and 2 kilometers. So they are approximately 20% more than a normal mile. So basically, our miles, if we're going to be accurate, is 1.2 miles, the miles that we understand. So whenever we see in the text of fiqh, I'm making this as a general statement, not an accurate one, but when you see reference to ثلاثة أميال, right, or mil, which is the two phrases that are used in fiqh, talking about the mile and 3 miles, the mile that is used in fiqh is referring to about 1.2 normal miles that we understand. Now, if we say that the farsakh is 3 of these miles, yeah, you know, like everybody knows, let's do that sum now, that the traveling distance is 48 miles, right? 3 times 16, all right? Now, 48 times 1.2, 57.6. If we're going to get really accurate about what that miles is, those are 48 Hashimi miles. So now all the people that have been going to Leeds and doing Qasr, and their life has now fallen apart because I've just told them, actually, that's not Qasr distance. You need to do more than 50 miles and 49 miles. You need to do 57.6 miles. You don't want to hear that information, bro. But that's actually what we're talking about. Shaz, no more yani buzzing for you, bro.
Oh, no problems.
You have no problems, Shaz. You know what? I found a section.
When I pack my bags in the boot, yeah,
It's done.
I'm going to take away, yeah. If you're kidding me, I'm not going to even discuss it.
That's the difference, Yara. You see that? You guys don't care about.
I've got to load the car, unload the car, walk into the hotel like a dog, yeah, and he's carrying all these bags. Man, my life is miserable. You don't have no idea, man. Then I've got to walk into hospitals with all of these bags, all these things, go teaching, find the rooms, find the things, people not turning up.
And then people are telling me that it's 1.2 miles and.
It's 10 miles on.
If it's 10 miles, I'm doing it. That is the fiqh right there. It's true, right? It's true. Like, on what authority are we going to go with 57.6 miles? It's an estimation. It's literally like a physical measurement and the like. So I want you to be aware of these variations to almost, if you like, reduce the tension around having to insist that it's got to be a mileage figure. As I said, that's not actually going to help as many people as we think. It's only going to stress more people out. Because like their magic figure of 50 miles has now disappeared. It's almost like we're forcing people to take ownership. And you know what? I think that we need to. I do think that we need to empower people to be more confident about things. I honestly don't think that's a bad thing. I completely empathize with how confusing it can be. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's a bad thing that people start to have to activate themselves more and think about their deen more, and take things back to principles, for example, oh, you know what it is, I'm not sure. So you know what, I'll just stick to doing the normal prayer, because the asl, the default position, is to pray in full. You know, applying these religious principles is actually increasing your knowledge. It's increasing your skin in the game. All right. So, Sheikh says, kind of on page 352, although Mesa reckons we're on 54, but I don't think so. Sheikh says, there's no had, there's no limit. In Sahih Muslim, Anas said that the Prophet ﷺ, whenever he would leave his home to go on a distance of 3 amyal, 3 miles, all 3 farasikh, he would pray 2 units. Narrated by Imam Muslim, hadith number 691. Sheikh goes, I mean, if you compare 3 farsakh or farasikh to 16, which is what people are obligating, it's a massive difference. And it's a tiny percentage, 9 compared to, or 10 compared to 48 or 50 or 57.6. That's a good point. So the correct position is that there is no distance, there is no specified minimum distance. And this all goes back to urf, how the people understand it. And I think I mentioned last week that the easiest way to understand it is that when you go out and you think you're traveling, then you're traveling. And that's a valid travel as long as there is no consensus to the contrary. When everybody says, bro, behave, how the fish is that traveling? Then it's not traveling. But if there's even 2 people that say, he's got a point, yeah, then there's no ijma', then there is no consensus to the contrary, and we're good to go. And I think that this is a very useful, workable kind of model. Shaykh Uthaymeen says, however, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, he said that there's a bit more nuance to this as well. He goes, in my opinion, it is possible that a very long distance that is traveled for a very short time is safar, and to stay a very long time, or to stay a significant long time in a short distance is also a journey. So therefore Sheikh says that we can therefore put this into 4 categories. Did we cover this last week? No. Therefore we can put this into 4 categories. Page 353. He goes, number 1, long time, long distance. He goes, nobody argues about that. La ishkala fi, everyone agrees on that concept. And that's like someone, if they go in a plane from Riyadh, Qasim to Mecca, miles and miles, and they stay for 10 days. That's a long distance, long time. This is a proper journey. Alright? That's number 1. Category 1. Category 2, mudda qasira fi musafa qasira. A short stay not far away from your home. Short distance. Short stay, short distance. He goes, this isn't travel. So he goes, if someone, for example, leaves Unayza and goes to Burayda, the distance between Unayza and Burayda, this is all the areas of the Najd. If you've ever heard of the phrase Najd, towards Riyadh, in this area, the kind of conservative side and the scholarly side of Saudi Arabia. This is about 30 miles. Yeah. 30 miles, 40 kilometers. Yeah. So he goes, this is not to be considered. Short stay, short distance. So drive there and back. In today's time, from a Manchester point of view, it would probably be a Huddersfield, right? How far did we? I think I mentioned Huddersfield last week. What did we say? Oldham wouldn't be, for example. Excuse me, it's miles away.
50 miles.
Yeah, flipping 50 miles. Dewsbury. Bro, that's miles away. Bro, Huddersfield is like what, 20 miles?
No, it's not.
30.
Halifax 40 miles.
Now Halifax is far. Halifax sounds far.
It's not 40 miles.
Yeah, so I was right then. Huddersfield is no way 30 miles.
It's about 35 because
Bro, you're coming from Chorlton, bro. From here, if we jump onto the 60, what is it, 30 odd miles? I don't know. Oldham's what? 15? 18. That's far, isn't it? What, closer? 18 sounds far, doesn't it? 18 don't sound right. Is it? 15, 18, yeah? 35. Yeah, you see, Huddersfield would be the one that, is up in the air, whatever. But no, I wouldn't feel comfortable with Huddersfield. I wouldn't comfortable. Sheffield, maybe, I don't know. Oldham, definitely not. Ashton, definitely not. What other places? Bury, not. Alright, so yeah, okay, so go outside Greater Manchester. What we're looking at, Stoke, for example, I feel like it's a different universe. Yeah. Anyway, that's the short and short. The third category, مدة طويلة في مسافة قصيرة بمعنى. So he goes, this is really good. This is very interesting. This is where it gets interesting. Third category is a long time, and long time does not mean, by the way, months. Long time means longer than a day, by the way. Right? He's not there for just 1 hour or 2 hours, right? So a long time, a short distance away. And the distance means he's left his home. This is fascinating for me, this one. So he goes, so for example, he goes to a place which is not considered his town. Right? لا ينسب لبلده. For those who are students of the Arabic language, balad means land, but here it means his actual area. Right? His village, his town, his whatever. Yeah? Doesn't mean the country, obviously. Right? وَلَيْسَ مِنْهَا. Yani, he's not from this kind of area. It's not where his home is. It's not his actual kind of town, but it's kind of out. But he stays there 2 or 3 days. So that's like going to Bury for 2-3 days. No, that's Greater Manchester. Well, even that could be argued. Because, I mean, are we talking Cheadle here? Or are we talking Manchester? It'd be Manchester. So, what's the closest place outside of Manchester? Bolton's good. Although Bolton's Greater Manchester as well. Yeah, it is, yeah. Rossendale is fire. Blackburn's miles away. Exactly. You're like big 30s, 40 odd miles away. What's the closest place outside the thingy? Middlewich? Huh? Stoke is miles away, bro. Middlewich. Macclesfield. Macclesfield's good. That's because you live on the edge of Macclesfield, Mr. Posh guy. Yeah? We're not talking about that. We're not talking about the people who live in the Shire, okay? We're talking about people who live in Manchester. Right? So, Macclesfield's good. Yeah, Mazita says Macclesfield. I think that's good. Now, let's go with Macclesfield. Macclesfield is not far at all. It's 20 minutes actually. Because I went there the other day. 20 minutes. If I go there for 2-3 days, bro, I'm the musafir of musafirs there, bro. I'm telling you straight. Right off the bat. And that's what he says. He goes, so look, he gave the example of Unayza to Burayda. And in the first example he said, the person goes from Unayza to Burayda, right? There's no way is that a safar. He answered that in point 2. But he said in point 3, if you go from Unayza to Burayda and stay there for 2-3 days, Unayza and Burayda are completely separate areas. They're cities actually. They're separate cities. Right? They're not even separate towns. They're separate cities. But he's gone there for 2-3 days. So, this is Musafir. He goes, he's a Musafir. The fourth one is a short distance, short time of stay, but miles away. So, for example, someone who goes from Al-Qasim to Jeddah and comes back. That's 870 kilometers, by the way. It's miles, an 8-hour drive. Right? So he goes there, attends his meeting for 1 hour, jumps back on the plane, comes back. He goes, this is Musafir. This is Safar. Okay? Now the Sheikh says, what if there's a dispute amongst the people about thingy? What if there is a dispute that the people are saying, no, that's not, like we are. What happens then? He goes, what we will go back to is two usul, two principles. The first principle, أن السفر مفارقة محل الإقامة. What is safar? It is leaving your place of residence. So if you've left your place of residence, then by definition you are musafir. That's the first principle. The second principle is the opposite. That the default position is that a person's a resident, and that journeying has to be proven. And in the absence of clearly proving that you are a journeyman, or you are journeying, or you are a traveler, it goes back to default position, which is that you are a resident. Sheikh says that these are two defining principles of the game, but the second one is clearly the stronger and the safer position. So Sheikh says, and he concludes, he goes, وَعَلَى هَذَا, and so based upon this, فَنَقُولُ في مثل هذه الصورة الاحتياط أن تتم. That in this kind of situation where there's a difference of opinion amongst the people and they're kind of debating and arguing, then basically it's best that you keep your prayers complete. And that's the safest and the most cautious position to follow. Because the default is al-iqama hatta natahaqqaq annahu yusamma safran. That whatever you do, wherever you go, the default position is that you're at home or you're resident or whatever, until it's become clear and everybody's happy that you are actually a musafir. I like that. Yes.
What about the airport? Like you're traveling a long distance.
Yeah.
You're at the airport. And
Oh, that's coming. That's coming. What you're asking about is when does it start?
yeah.
Yeah, and that's coming up in its right time. Yeah.
So I, for example, the other day went to Liverpool.
Yeah.
I was in Liverpool for the morning, and I went to Ormskirk.
Yeah.
And from Ormskirk, I went back home. Now, both distances are 40 miles from Manchester, but between Liverpool and Ormskirk is a good 15 odd miles.
From Manchester to Liverpool is 40, and then from Liverpool to Ormskirk is 15.
It was over like
Yeah.
it was
And-
about 15 miles.
And 15 to Ormskirk miles,
And then from Ormskirk back to home.
and then you
was
came
like
straight back, and that's about 40 as well. And that's the problem of using the mileage system. If we stick to the mileage system, technically you could see that this is not safar if you stick to some kind of mileage system.
I pray suffer before.
I think that you did the right thing.
There is ease in this religion.
There's ease in this religion indeed. I think you did the right thing, because I think that's what makes sense.
In the summer, I might not. But in the winter, particularly the short days, it feels more like travel.
Yeah, that's a problem.
I'm tired in the summer. Short days.
Yeah,
Winter,
100%. And here's the thing, you're thinking that's a good thing, right? I'm being religious in the summer, right? Because I've got more time.
travel is travel.
The real issue here, the reason that I this causes me to get concerned, and everybody obviously goes through this, is that instead of being rewarded for our caution and our desire to do the best, safest thing, which is exactly what I would do and everyone else would do when you know that you've got until 6 o'clock or whatever to pray Asr or whatever, to pray Dhuhr, for example. So you've got plenty of time and not stressed, worried or anything. And you can pray outside and it's chilling and it's hot and whatever. So you think, yeah, I'm going to do this. The question is that then in the cold and in the winter and the short days, what is actually driving the decision to shorten? And if it becomes the mission of the prayer times, that's now flaky kind of ground. Meaning that the irony, this is the classic irony, meaning that to stick to shortening in the summertime is the more religiously sound and safe position than actually not taking the concession, which we're going to come to, because is it even a concession? Yeah.
But I can get home in summer by like 4 o'clock and it's still roaring. I can pray 4 at home.
Yes.
Rather than pray 2 in car park somewhere.
Sure.
That's why in the summer I come home and just pray 4 easy.
Oh, that's something different.
Yes.
That's something different. That's when you say that, no, I didn't pray 2 because I actually was able to get home, then you're not cheating the system at all. You actually did what you're obliged to do anyway.
So rather than pray on time, pray at home or pray forward.
Yeah, rather than now. Is that something which is better? I don't believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't believe so. Because there's no doubt that to pray in the earlier time is the right thing to do. And if you have the valid excuse, concession, reason to pray 2 units in its right time, it needs to be offered. This is actually a lot deeper than many people think. For example, imagine, so this is a question which I don't think Shaykh Uthaymeen will cover, right? Alayhi rahmatullah. But the scenario comes when a person doesn't pray, right? Or not good with his prayers and he messes up and he basically, or he's good with his prayers and he just, completely forgets and remembers like 2 days later. So that prayer now needs to be made up. It's a qada that has to be done as per the hadith of let him pray as soon as he wakes up or as soon as he remembers it. Now, if you were traveling for those 2 days, what is it that you make up? And you remember when you got home. So you're at home now, and then you remembered that I didn't pray dhuhr on the day that I was traveling. Do you owe Allah 2 units, or do you owe Allah 4 units? And you remember that at home. What do you think? See, this is the problem with this topic. You're all over the place, you see. I'm jumping here, jumping there. 4, because you remembered at home. That's the position of the majority of scholars. I want to say, and I haven't looked at this for years, but I think Abu Hanifa, he said, and certainly like some scholars, I just can't remember who the big one was. And I want to say Abu Hanifa, but he said absolutely not. Absolutely 2 rak'ah. I'm pretty sure it is Abu Hanifa actually. It's 2 units that you owe. Because of the exact same hadith. The hadith says that let him pray as soon as he remembers it. Pray what? The prayer that he missed. What was the prayer that he missed? The 2 units. That was the one that he was meant to pray and didn't pray, and that's what he needs to pray. Let him pray it. Not let him pray dhuhr. Not let him pray whatever. Let him pray it, the missed prayer. What was the missed prayer? A prayer that was offered when it was only obligated as 2 units, etc. Then it gets even more complicated. Person will say, well, hold on, right? This is not actually the original prayer. The prayer was in a concession, whatever, state. Yeah? Concessioned. That's right. I knew something else close. Concessioned state. Well, then the response is going to be, no, that's the asl. Remember we spoke about that? That actually that is the original state of what the prayer is. It was 2 units and then it was increased for the people at home. Put that argument out again, Abu Hanifa will say that who told you that it was a concession? I obligate qasr. That's the crazy thing, by the way. When you think of today, just, your standard kind of, put your hand up, what do you think? When you put your hand up and think, who are the group of people, you can make it color-based, ethnic-based, culture-based, but if you were to put your hand up and say, who are the people who are most reticent and least likely to do qasr prayer? Who are they? Pakis. Right? All the Paks. All the Desis, Bengalis, Indians, Gujis, the Paks basically. Right? All the Hanafis. All the Hanafis. Because honestly, they have no idea about what the actual Hanafi position actually is. Actually, in the Hanafi school, it's the only madhab that obligates qasr. They said it's not a concession. And I'm sure you've heard this discussion before because of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he said this is a sadaqah that Allah has given, so accept it. And this is one of the arguments. They said that, we aren't going to cover that later on, but how can a person ever turn down something which is charity from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I remember Ibn Taymiyyah saying something like, can you imagine people that would turn away from something that Allah gives them as a gift? Tell me how is that people not going to get destroyed? Which is a sick line. But anyway, the majority of scholars are of the opinion that it's only a sunnah, right? And therefore, whenever there's a problem or there's any doubt, whenever there's an issue, it's a concession. You take it, if you don't take it, no problem. Yep. So all of these little legal decisions, they have an impact later on in the making up of how you understand what it is that you've either missed or what you've done. Anyway, so 354 then, it is sunnah for that person, sunnah lahu qasr ruba'iyya rak'atayn. It is a sunnah to reduce or shorten the 4-unit prayers to 2 rak'ah. Shaykh now speaks about this. He normally does. We normally cover this every couple of years. It's a good reminder about the word sunnah. And he says that the sunnah has a different meaning with the fuqaha, and also it has a different meaning according to the Sahaba and to the Salaf. And when it comes to the Salaf and the Sahaba and the early Muslims, the word sunnah is more aqidah based. It's more methodology based. It's more system based. It's more about you are upon the deen, you are upon the way, you are upon guidance if you follow the sunnah. It's not a technical term that is referring to an action which you are rewarded for if you do and you are not punished for if you leave, which is a technical definition of the fuqaha, of the jurists. So, to go back to the first meaning then, as per the Sahaba and the Salaf, it means that which the Prophet ﷺ used to do. Whether it was obligatory, we still call it sunnah, or whether it was recommended, we still call it sunnah, because we're speaking about it in a holistic way. This guy's on the sunnah. This person's upon the sunnah. He understands this deen proper and he does what the Prophet ﷺ does. It now is not talking about its legal status. We're talking about its system, methodological kind of reality. And that's why then Shaykh gives some examples. He said, and from that is the example of Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anh, when he said, Minas sunnah. It is from the sunnah that when a virgin is married, as opposed to the widow, that she gets 7 nights. Yes? 7 nights. We covered this hadith, I think. Yeah, in lots of detail many years ago. فَهَذِهِ sunnah, Shaykh Uthaymeen says, wajibah. This word sunnah that Anas has said is from the sunnah. It doesn't mean that this is something recommended. It is obligatory. So if a person is married to a wife and then gets married to for example, marries 2 women, one's thayyib, one's the virgin, 3 nights, 7 nights. And it's obligatory to give to her unless she forgoes it. Unless she lets it go. That's her job to do that. From your side, you have to give 7 nights. Yeah? And so, this is not sunnah meaning recommended, or we're just telling you to, it's obligatory. But the word sunnah means that this is how you follow the way of the Prophet ﷺ. And Shaykh says, and also the statement of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, when he was asked about a person who prays with the imam who is a resident, and he prays 4 rak'ah with that person, and then he was asked, and what if he prays by himself? Should he pray 2 units? Shaykh Abdullah ibn Abbas said, Tilka hiya sunnah. That is the sunnah. That's the sunnah. That doesn't mean that's recommended. That's the way of the Prophet ﷺ. Those who are part of the tarbiyah programs, the Umrah one, Hajj one, you see this. You see us do this very specifically. Where? When we go to Mecca. You know where Ibn Abbas was asked this question? When he was in Mecca. He was asked this question when he was in Mecca, and the people came for Umrah, and they were musafir because they'd come for Umrah. But Ibn Abbas was the one who is obviously the Imam of the area and the like, and they asked him this question: when we pray with you, is it right that we should pray full? But if we pray by ourselves, we'll pray then the twos and the twos. And he goes, that's the way of the Prophet ﷺ. And that's what we do. We the way that we delay our arrival into Mecca is to try to maximize the rewards of the prayers, minimize what we pray on the way, yeah, maximize by praying the obligatory prayers in Medina to get the reward of Masjid Nabawi, and then delay then the Maghrib and Isha until we get to the actual Masjid al-Haram, if it's possible, and then we will establish our own Jama'ah after Salatul Isha has already been prayed, and we will go into the Haram and we will pray 3 and we will pray 2. Whereas if we'd come a little bit earlier, we'll be praying 3 and we'll be praying 4. But we consider our reward to be the same as the reward, even though we prayed 2 less. And that's what Ibn Abbas said is the sunnah. meaning that's the way of the Prophet ﷺ. Then he goes, but as for the fuqaha, the jurists, then they use it differently. It means التي يثاب فاعلها ولا يعاقب تاركها. That the one who does the act gets rewarded for it, but the one who leaves that act does not get punished for it. That's the definition of sunnah or mustahab or the recommended act. Wajib is the one who gets rewarded for doing it, gets punished for leaving it. Haram is the one who gets rewarded for leaving it and punished for doing it. Yeah? And the one who gets makruh, the makruh definition is the one who gets rewarded for leaving it, doesn't get punished for doing it. And the fifth one, which is mubah, permissibility, neither punished, neither rewarded for doing it. It's just a free act, a nothing act, unless you use the power of intention and you turn that permissible act into something which is useful, which is of course relevant today, right? Because a lot of people speak about the kind of things that we've got. We can't do anything. We're powerless. Blah blah blah. All this, Israeli lobbies. Blah blah blah. And when you want to understand the power of niyyah in the mubah acts, you're really talking about politics and strategy. And politics and strategy is what kind of transforms the area of the area of al-ibaha, or the mubahat actions. For example, protest, yeah, or boycotting. Boycotting is a good example. So, although maybe boycotting, anyway, boycotting is a bit arguable. There could be some little bit of evidence that might suggest that it might be a recommended act, but my heart is not feel comfortable with that. I believe that it's a permissible act, right? But if you're seeing, for example, very targeted, very clear results, pressure, all the rest of it, and you have that intention to, I'm going to boycott blah-de-blah or boycott blah-de-blah, then I believe that a person will be rewarded for it, regardless of what happens. But again, it is important to remember this is a matter of politics. This can't be made qat'i, and that's the problem when the activists start throwing these phrases around. Activists have no space in this area to talk about the religion. Give us some good ideas. Don't tell us that you are eating haram, drinking haram, all this kind of stupidity. Just sit right down and just tell us what you think is a good thing. You don't tell us that what Allah made halal is haram and what, this kind of stuff. It's important. But they have good intentions, of course, but that's when they get carried away. Boycotting and the strategies behind it, and who to support and who not to support. So boycotting is an easy example. Political lobbying, for example. Political donations, for example, to parties, right? I mean, I'd rather gouge my eyes out than to ever say anything positive about Labour ever again in my lifetime, right? But that's emotive thinking. If I'm thinking long term, right now I might not be giving some money or anything like that. But, in 1 or 2 years' time, if they're the only real choice against someone who's wants us really, every time that you want to throw Labour into flipping whatever, that khanzira Braverman, when she opens her mouth, you think, I'm being too harsh on bloody Labour, because she's the khanzir of all the khanazir, yeah? So that's why this is a matter of ijtihad, politics. You can't make these issues qat'i. You can't make them definitive. Impossible. You get what I'm saying? So, protests, for example. Protests, I was with one of my very, very close, oldest good friends yesterday. We had this discussion. Went to see him in London. And we're speaking about strategies. He's involved in lots of big things and lots of, all this kind of stuff. And he was talking about protests, and he said something which I really liked, which I don't hear enough of, which is super obvious. And that is that protest has never been an Islamic concept, ever. Protesting, unless someone proves me very wrong historically, but I don't think that people will be able to. But protesting has been more a tool of a system that we've become used to. Without democracy, the concept of the protest means nothing. Yani, I want to say that we are a theocracy. We believe in a theocratic model, right? We don't believe in, all of you could. I mean, if I'm the Khalifa, I couldn't care less what all of you think. All of you stand up and shout and prance about. I'll get you all killed. And there's not a single blame upon me, because you are all going against the Imam. You're all going against the Khalifa. You're all going against the authority. It's a very different thing. Now, that's obviously a massive no-no for weak Muslims or liberal Muslims or activists. They like, what the hell's going on here, right? But that's because they don't know about our siyasa shar'iyya. They don't know about our politics. But anyway, the point is that that's the model we believe in. And it's the model which is the Khilafah. And it's the model which is the only successful way of fixing all the world's problems, to get the biggest factor that's ruining the world out of it, which is people's stupid opinions, people thinking too much, speaking too much, right? And so once me, myself, and I has been removed, and it's all about Allah, Allah, and Allah, the game is saved, and justice will be back. Therefore, protest and arrest is a expression of a system that needs it to exist to be able to justify the existence of that system. That's why you saw the big, obviously this weekend with the big protests that have been planned. Now the police are in a complete muddle trying to work out how to ban something which they know that they can't, because it will completely undermine the fake premise that they are actually even there in the first place. The Conservatives obviously couldn't give a monkeys, right? But they know that everybody else will not allow something like that to happen, because it undermines their own zulm, undermines their position, right? So they can't ban it. So they're in that catch-22 situation. I just want to make it clear, the reason I'm saying this point is so that you realize that protest has nothing to do with Islam. Nothing. All right. It could then be argued that those people who say that it is showing something blah blah, even it could be argued that it achieves nothing either. It hasn't got any political blah blah, this, that, whatever. And so I don't know of a better example than a permissible act or makruh act maybe than protesting. Makruh if it's got haram aspects, some kind of maybe some haram stuff that goes in or whatever. But let's just say this all healthy and halal and good and whatever, then let's keep it at mubah. If it could be proven to you that the people who are in a war zone, who feel that they've been abandoned and feel that they've been forgotten, they feel that nobody's there for them, and they see these people who are in a different country, in a different thing, in a country that is the one that is actually attacking us and supplying the weapons and this and that, whatever, and they see the people protesting, not in our name, we won't have it, our brothers, our sisters, you're telling me that doesn't give them a little buzz? You're telling me that doesn't give them a little bit of a boost? You tell them that doesn't make them feel like, there is some kind of ummah, yeah, this is rubbish, they're weak, but that's what they could do. SubhanAllah, I don't know if you remember in, obviously I remember this, but I don't consume much media, so I can't know about these modern times, but I remember 9/11. After 9/11, when everything went upside down, I'm almost positive that a website was set up by Americans called Not in Our Name.
Yeah, it exists. Probably talks about it.
Is it?
Yeah. So it's all the part, whatever America has been involved in.
Yeah, that's the one. So I remember when that started. I remember the first day that it was created. It's not in our name, not in my name, whatever, whatnot. And they'd hold up placards and they would say not in our name. And it was like a big campaign. It's like that Humans of New York kind of thing, where it's just pictures of people and they're the most random people and they've just got not in our name, not in our name. And it was when they were bombing Afghanistan, bombing thingy, all the attacks on Muslims everywhere, whatever, whatnot. I remember, as someone, I'm not under threat at all in any kind of way, but I remember, because obviously I'd give khutbahs more and all that kind of stuff. I was younger then as well. And, very hard rhetoric against the Americans and against the kuffar and against systems. That campaign softened my own tone. Like me. It had an impact upon me that I can't be saying, destroy every single one of them. I actually felt, you know what? It's not right. We know that. And when we, and obviously the kuffar want us to try to blame all the Jews, right? They want us to be so they can then label us as anti-Semites, right? The truth is that even if we wanted to, we can't. Because actually the people who are doing the biggest damage are the Jewish actual anti-Zionists right now. Those are Holocaust survivors, the professors, the academics, the human rights organizations. They're the ones that are doing the major damage to Israel right now. They're the ones that are the biggest pain to America, Israel, and the UK. They're like a big thorn in their side, not the Muslims, right? And so you realize that when people protest, you might not think that it has a financial or political or military benefit. Although it could be argued that, those that are blocking the doors to munition factories, or those that are, threatening someone that you're being kicked out, you're not getting voted for, whatever. It could be argued. But at the very least, it does leave a point in your mind that, that, people aren't the same. There are good people out there. And the Muslims are the same. When they see their brothers and sisters, protesting, it matters. I don't think that makes protests a good thing per se, or Islamic at all. But I think that intention matters a lot when it comes to the permissible matters. I think it's important to remember that the permissible area is a they used to say, right? They used to say that the Muslims are all the same. But where the real the people take it up to the next level are those that allow those who have mastered their intention, and they basically reap it in the permissible areas. Right? Because every Muslim can pray tahajjud all night and read Quran all day and fast every couple of days. Everybody can do that. So how to differentiate between the top levels and the basic, mediocre, and the average is those that have got the ability to, as the Salaf used to say, make my sleep like my prayer. Because they never go to sleep except that they give it a function. That I'm not going to sleep because I'm tired. I'm going to sleep because I need to get at least 3 hours so I can then pray a good couple of rak'ahs, for example. Or I need to be in top shape for the work tomorrow so that I feel like I've done halal work. It's very little changes, micro changes in the thought process, but it's where you clean up. Niyyah is so important. Anyway, so then Shaykh says, he goes, so as for our author, he said that it is sunnah to shorten the 4-unit prayer, and this is when he says sunnah, then our author, then he means that this is something that a person is rewarded for. Alright? What are the 4-unit prayers? Dhuhr, Asr, and Salatul Isha. What are the evidences for this? The Book of Allah, the Sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the consensus of the Ummah, the 3 key evidences. As for the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإذا ضربتم في الأرض فليس عليكم جناح أن تقصروا من الصلاة إن خفتم أن يفتنكم الذين كفروا. In Surah Al-Nisa, verse 101. And when you set out into the land, then there is no issue for you to shorten. There's no problem if you shorten your prayer, if you fear that some of the people, the kuffar, will put you to trial, and give you a headache. Yeah? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَقَالَ فَلَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمْ جُنَاحٌ أَن تَقْصُرُوا مِنَ الصَّلَاةِ. When Allah says, لَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمْ جُنَاحٌ, that there's no blame upon you. This phrase comes quite a bit. For example, when we are about to perform sa'i, what do we say? إِنَّ الصَّفَا وَالْمَرْوَةَ مِنْ شَعَائِرِ اللَّهِ فَمَنْ حَجَّ الْبَيْتَ أَوْ اعْتَمَرَ فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِ أَنْ يَطَّوَّفَ بِهِمَا. There is no blame. So that the Safa and Marwa are from the 2 signs of Allah, the 2 rituals of Allah. And so whoever visits the house for the Hajj or is performing the Umrah, then there is no issue for them to go between them. No issue. No blame upon them. Now, you've got a way of reading that. If you say no blame, it's not exactly praising the issue. Do you know what I mean? Like you're about to come to do sa'i and you're all buzzed and it's going to be a great moment. And the motivating factor is that, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to hold you accountable if you do it. You'll be like, Ras, what's wrong with it? You know what I'm saying? The language indicates that. And likewise, when you go out into the land, there's no blame upon you to shorten the prayer. You'd be thinking, gosh, man, I need like proper reasons to shorten the prayer. The language would indicate that. And Shaykh Uthaymeen comments and he says that this is not what laysa alaykum junahun. There's no blame upon you. That's not what it means. He said it means intifa'ul mani'. He goes, anything that could possibly have been a barrier to you doing the act, it's not existent. Meaning, go ahead. Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. And so then what happens is that you then go, when there's no barrier to you. There's nothing preventing you. So you can almost say that if you go out into, you could translate it as, if you go out into the land, there's nothing preventing you from shortening the prayer. The mood has changed now, isn't it? Then there's no blame upon you if I say to you that, and then when you get Safa Marwa, there's nothing preventing you making the journey between, back and forth. Different to saying there's no blame upon you, and so on. And by the way, because the Muslim, that a lot of the actions of Hajj, I remember, subhanAllah, this year, was it this year or 19? I made it a part of my Arafah talk, my Arafah address, and I said that what's amazing, subhanAllah, about the act of Hajj and Umrah to a lesser degree, but Hajj especially, is that it's almost entirely taken from the mushrikeen. It's crazy. Like the whole thing. The Kaaba itself, of course. The Kaaba was also worshipped by the kuffar mushrikeen. They just stacked it full of their own stuff. They used to make tawaf as well. They used to do the tawaf between Safa and Marwa. They used to go to Arafah. They used to go to Muzdalifah. All this is from them. Right? But what's amazing is that when you see what the Prophet ﷺ did, in every aspect he tweaks it. So that never will we be then told that we are copying them or doing the shirk, that them purifying each part. But the structure remains. And so the Muslims, they were really hesitant when they saw like two hills and nothing there. Just like Umar was really hesitant to do what? To kiss the black stone, right? He's like, everything about this whole process is proper kufr, shirk behavior. Who touches a black stone? Who touches a stone anyway? Who gives a stone that power? And then he says, Wallah, if it wasn't for the fact that I saw my messenger do it, I wouldn't have done it. And so they looked at this, and so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, there's absolutely no issue with you doing this. Because you're not copying the mushrikeen, you're actually doing the action of Hajar. Alayhi salam. So, So then to finish, so what Shaykh says is that once we've taken, in the language, we've taken out the barrier or the mani', then the issue now becomes default. And what is the default? Right? So now that we've taken out the preventing factor, we will take it back to default position. What is the default? We look at the evidences. What do the evidences suggest? That the Prophet ﷺ, إِذَا سَافَرَ صَلَّ رَكَعَتَيْنِ, that whenever he would travel, he would pray 2 units. This is narrated by Bukhari, hadith number 1102. And it has not been preserved, look at this, from the Prophet ﷺ, whatsoever, ever, that he prayed 4 units on a journey. Never. Okay? Rather, in every single one of his journeys, whether it was long or short, we only see that he prayed 2 units. So that's the Quran evidence is the first. The Sunnah evidence is the second one. I just mentioned Bukhari. And the third is the ijma' of the Muslims. This is something that Shaykh says is known in this religion by necessity. Ma'lum bid-durura. As Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, look at this statement. May Allah be pleased with him and his father. He said that I accompanied the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the journeys, and he never increased upon 2 units of prayer until Allah took him. And then I accompanied Abu Bakr, and he never increased upon 2 units until Allah took him. And then I accompanied Umar, and he never increased upon 2 units until Allah took him. And then I accompanied Uthman, and he never increased upon 2 units until Allah took him. Again narrated by Imam al-Bukhari, 1102 and 689. Now here's the interesting part. Sheikh says, well, he goes somewhere else actually. He goes that there's some issues to be said about actually I don't know whether we're going to that. We've already gone time, but I just want to put that the statement of Abdullah bin Umar is problematic. Because I'll tell you that Uthman actually increased upon the 2 and he prayed 4, and there's a consensus on the fact that he did that. Our excuse for Abdullah bin Umar will be that maybe he didn't accompany him in that journey. Where did he do that? Hajj. Well done, Shazad Salim. Yeah, Shaz's on it. You think he's not? Did you see that he was sitting there? He just went, Hajj. Gangster. There are levels to this game. Alright, I think we'll quote it. I could feel the negative energy coming from Shaz. I get nervous like that. I know that the hour went and he was like, what's going on here? Right, we got questions. What are we saying? What questions do we have? We had a hurricane. That's my guy Asif from Hajj. We had a hurricane-related power outage last year. So our family camped at a friend's house for 2 to 3 days until the power was restored. We were barely 1-2 miles from home, but we're camped there with our bags and all essentials for 2 to 3 days. Based on what we discussed today, it seems that we could be considered musafir. No, I don't think that's the case, because I still think it's part of where you are. It's your kind of town, right? 1 to 2 miles, I think it's too close. I think it's got to be outside of the town, outside of the village, outside of your thingy. It still might be a couple of miles, but it's got to be outside. But if it's like, I don't think that's good. Hiba asks, would you recommend a 5-month-old and a 6-year-old have the meningitis ACWY vaccine? As guidelines are a bit inconsistent, kids are already up to date with childhood vaccines. Personally, I would. ACWY, yeah. ACWY, yes. Flu, I have to tell you that personally, I wouldn't. But if they're good, strong and healthy or whatever, any kind of health problems though, absolutely. Elderly should really be taking flu seriously, by the way. If you've got elderly parents and stuff like that, make sure that they don't miss out on flu and pneumonia. It is important. They really are important. Any kind of weakness, then it can really get in and cause damage. As if I had zero doubt that you didn't do qasr. Yeah.
How long being in a location would you say that?
Next week, or maybe the week after. Is it a good idea to make dua after the fard prayer? I think it's okay, but it's not something which was an action of the Prophet ﷺ. Asthmatic kids definitely would be requiring that. That is definitely an indicating thing. At the back, yeah? Okay, go ahead, bro.
So you mentioned that there's no Islamic basis for protesting.
No, I didn't say that, but I said that I could be challenged historically, but I don't think that it is an Islamic principle. Like Islamic principle, like
when Uthman was when they first surrounded his house, would you say that was started off as a protest or a siege?
But that would be a negative anyway.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it's not. But he let it be.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything. I mean, we know the whole.
Yeah, well, we know why he didn't do anything.
From the onset, he didn't. It was in his early phases, and it wasn't at a point where when it can be disbanded quite easily without more and more people gathering.
Yes.
He didn't stop it.
Yes.
He let it be, and then it.
Even what if I tell you that even if he had given statements and said that this is good, his statement would be rejected because there's a consensus. You can't rebel against.
Yeah, no, it's not that he could never say it was good because they're rebelling against it.
Yeah.
I'm saying it.
Yeah.
Let the thing take place.
Yeah, but my point is that if we were trying to establish his action as an evidence, right, the fact that he let it take place, we'd have to, before we use that as an evidence, have to answer how is it that there's a consensus that it's not allowed to go up against the ruler. Now, here's the thing. If the system itself, and I think it's important that we separate between two things. When we talk about the word protest, yeah, and we're saying that it's completely un-Islamic, whatever, we're talking within the Islamic Khilafah and the legitimate scenario, all right? When you look at Egypt, for example, or no, not Egypt, let's go with Libya, yeah? But Egypt as well. These two countries, their constitutions are based upon revolution. By definition, their constitution celebrates revolution and protest and gathering. That's the fantastic irony of them cracking down upon people that are protesting. That's why Rabaa was as outrageous as it was, even though actually, Islamically, there would be no justification for it. But they disqualified themselves when they abandoned Islam as a that's the move here. They abandoned themselves, they abandoned that whole principle, and they said that this is a secular, democratic, revolutionary government constitution. All right then. Well then we'll get on the streets then. Because if you're saying you're taking Islam out of it, we'll take Islam out of it as well. And that's how they went. Obviously it went into different places. But yeah, go on, you were saying, yeah.
Yasser Qadhi, he did a talk recently. It's titled The Way That Freed Al-Aqsa. And he talks about before Saladin Ayyubi, around about 90 years beforehand, when the Crusaders came in and they killed everybody in Jerusalem. With everything that was going on at the time, there was a khilafah at that point, but nobody was responding or doing anything about it.
About the Crusades.
About the Crusades.
Yeah.
And then it took somebody called Fahud, I think his name was. He caused up a stir, went to the Khalifa, caused up a stir. The Khalifa
basically protest to bring attention to the cause.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then eventually, the Khalifa then decided, all right, fine, I'll do something about it. Meaning that it took the pressure of the public to apply that pressure for the Khalifa to do something about it.
Yeah.
So
So let's take that example. This only proves my point, right? This only supports my point, which is that this is not an Islamic principle. The Khilafah will be held accountable. The Khalif will be held accountable by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. The reason that the Prophet ﷺ said that the just rulers will be on the right of Allah upon thrones of light is because it is the most impossible position. You take that responsibility. It's just you need to be aware of every aspect of the ummah. And when you are not their representative, and you have failed them and you have failed Allah, and you are going to be in trouble. But the one who pulls it off is just on a different level. But people won't get to that level. This is his failing. He gets his position, he gets the permission from Allah, imagine, to do what he wants, punish how he wants, charge the people what he wants, resources all in his hands, justify the spending and the budgets in all departments. And he didn't know about this. Complete failing. And it was left to civilians and XYZ to get the job done, to remind him of his failing. And then obviously, what happened. This would be the example here of a protest, even though it was a different environment. And that if we could see some achievable outcomes, for example. So yeah, what I mean is that this is not justifying its Islamic principle, but it's justifying its Islamic permissibility.
Yeah, I think you need to define what protest is, because the protest is the time of process when people stop in the khutbah and the time of Umar.
Good point. That's also a very good point. What does actual protest mean even?
Protest was happened all the way through.
People would always stand up and make a point. People would always remind others and the like.
And that's what he did here. He stood up in the khutbah and he reminded the khatib. So that was a single protest, which is different to a collective protest. So it's how are we defining protest?
Because normally the word protest is all about creating instability and creating some insurrection and creating some kind of whatever, and that's taking it up to a whole different level. Yeah.
After Umar accepted Islam, and then he said to the Prophet ﷺ, why don't we go out and pray? And then the Prophet ﷺ went out to the Kaaba, and then Umar was leading the road, Hamza was leading the road, and they went out wouldn't that be classed as a protest?
Against the wider power in a state of shirk and so on and so forth, yes, but this is what I'm trying to say. That this is not an Islamic like you would not be allowed to do that if that was a khilafah. Yani if like there was like I'll give you an example. 3 other figures, very strong activists that came out in the khilafah to the public and stood up and said that you must allow LGBTQ whatever blah de blah. What do you think would happen to them? So this what the companions did, praying openly, doing things openly, is against kufr. It's a jihad. That's a state of war, right? Pseudo war before it was officially announced, but that's what it was. It was resistance, and that's absolutely part of our deen. Yeah. Shmalia.
You said when you went to Makkah and you went at a time where you can read the 3 and then
Oh yeah.
2 units. It might be obvious, but I'm just asking out of curiosity. Like, did you read the 2 on your own? Like, can you read a shortened prayer in Jamaat if you're all traveling, or is that just only applicable when you're traveling on your own?
Oh no, it is for a person praying alone and congregation. It's all about who's leading. So if you're praying by yourself, you're leading yourself, right? And if you're leading others, then the rest behind you, as we're going to come to this, all right? Then depending upon what they are, if they're travelers, then they'll pray 2 with you, and if they're not travelers, they'll complete the prayer. Just on the dua after the fard salah, I thought there were a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ used to make dua. Or is that reference to specific adhkar? Yeah, it's reference. So when we say dua, I don't mean individual adhkar that are in the form of dua. When he's asking the question, he means literal formally, like what we see today. People, putting their hands up and making specific dua. This is a permissible act and a permissible time. And even generally, it's a good thing because you put forward something good. Whenever you put something forward to Allah, you take something back, and that's dua. But it's when people think that this is a better time than other times, that's problematic. There's at least 10 off the top of your head times that are far, far better than making dua after the prayer, and yet guaranteed that people will put the dua after the prayer at number 1. And they won't even do any of the others, like outside when it's raining, or in the middle of the night, or when they're traveling, or whatever. Yeah.
Would it be correct if I travel home to my parents, fly down there for a couple of days and play concert?
So this is gonna, so this is gonna become, obviously, we're gonna discuss this a lot. It's gonna become, we're gonna discuss it, I think, next week and then the week after, because this is a difficult issue. Yeah, we're gonna discuss it. Imran, yeah.
Yeah, just a question. On recent travel to the Middle East, when you're in a shopping mall, or they have like prayer rooms, and there's multiple jamaats. There's not like a set timetable like this.
Yeah.
The azan goes off, usually a pre-recorded message. You find the nearest prayer room.
Yeah.
And you can see people, there's a jamaat going on.
Yeah.
And there's people waiting behind for the next jamaat, so to speak, and then behind for the next jamaat. So it's a continuous jamaat every 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah. Because of space.
Sorry?
Because of space.
Yeah, there's lots of space.
No, because of lack of space, you mean?
No.
What are they waiting for then?
I'm not sure. But
Because what you're describing, we've all seen and experienced, is because the tiny musalla is completely packed, and we have to wait for all of them to come out so we can establish a second one. That's the normative one. But what one are you describing? What kind of scenario are you describing?
describing is a prayer already started.
Right.
So when I come in,
Bigger area, open, lots of space.
and
They're praying already.
I don't really join it.
Yeah.
But then as soon as I finished, I see another jamaat starting afterwards. So whether they're waiting for that one or they're all really late.
Yeah.
But what the question I wanted to ask was, if I'm a traveller,
Yes.
is it better for me to join one of the jamaat or to do my individual?
Oh no, it's always better to join a jama'ah. And not only always join the jama'ah, but you don't need to worry about what they're doing. One thing that you should never do, especially when you're traveling, is ever look to what anyone else is doing. Most of the time they have no idea what they're doing. The blind leading the blind. Honestly. Hajj and Umrah completely don't even look to your left or right, any people. They've got the world's gathering of the most ignorant people on the planet. You just got to ignore everything. They have no idea. Because they are all looking around and trying to copy everybody else. You cannot be that guy. And the same is in the mall musallas. The majority of them haven't got a clue. So don't be waiting for people who are waiting around and they pray by themselves and this and that, whatever. You should be super focused. As soon as you see a jama'ah, you join them. You don't need to ask them, what were you praying? What are you going to pray? This, that, whatever. Nothing. Jama'ah, I know that I need to pray my asr 2 rak'ah, that's all I'm praying. I need to pray my 2 dhuhr, that's all I'm praying. Good luck to you, I'm getting what I came for, that's it. Allah alam, yeah.
So say, for example, in that situation, you join the Jama'at, but you join it late.
Yeah.
Right. Do you...
As a musafir.
As a musafir.
That's coming as well. That's coming, yeah. Mariam says, I see the protests as being about making a statement of objection to the status quo as well as a statement of support for the cause. And I think that matters. Islamic schools that have masajid teachers line up the students at salah time on the female side. It is absolute chaos. These are not necessarily very young kids, but they are school kids and rows upon rows full of them. Suddenly, leaving massive gaps and they just walk out, yeah, and just giggling throughout. What would be a practical advice for helping them join salah by making sure female salah is not compromised due to the soft situation? You are definitely asking the wrong person. Because I would never let that kind of behavior happen. I would smack the life out of those girls. Yeah, so don't ask me those kind of questions, bro. Don't ask me things you don't want to hear. What is the Sharia position on not paying taxes to this country who are using it against Muslims? To not ask me that live on thing. That's the Sharia position. How does the obligation to prayer in the masjid, which we discussed last year, tie in with traveling? As a traveler should be praying in a masjid, so we'll likely pray full salah with the jama'ah. Yes, if the traveling is not getting in the way of the journey. So if a person is in an area where they're hanging around, then they should attend the prayer. Is there anything, and if they don't pray the traveller prayer, then it's absolutely fine, and we'll come to that next week as well, or the week after. Is there anything wrong with calling someone whose name is Abdul Jabbar by just Abdul? Yes, I really hate it. I really, really, really hate that. Is it haram? No, I don't think it's haram, but it's weird. Yeah, I know that all the kufs say Abdul, but I mean, I don't know why Muslims say it. We've got to stop saying it. And I've never ever called a person or when I've been in any kind of position of formality or as a manager or as a pharmacist or whatever, I see Abdul, I will never call him Abdul. That's such an insult. And most of the time they don't know either. You got to educate them. So I will look at the full name and I'll say Abdul Rahman or Abdul Alim or whatever, and and I will tell them normally as well. Don't let people call you Abdul, bro. Right, yeah.
Following on to the brother's question earlier on, if you're praying, let's just say you're praying Nawafil,
yeah.
somebody comes along in the masjid, they think you're praying your Fard,
yes.
and they join you.
Yes.
Do you then turn that into...
If you're praying Nafil prayer and someone joins you and for their obligatory prayer, it's allowed for you to raise your voice and let them join you. It's allowed.
On the opposite side, I'm assuming you're...
The opposite as well, yes. The opposite as well. Shemali, yeah. Yeah.
What if, obviously people start puberty and then they might not start praying straight away. When, obviously they might have missed 2 years of praying.
Because of not being sure that they had to pray, or because they were not practicing?
They were not practicing.
Oh no, that's a different thing. The question about non-practicing people, go on.
Once you start praying, do you need to make up?
That's what I was saying, yeah. The question about not practicing and people not having prayed for years and having thousands of prayers, whatever, my position is that there is no making up of that prayer. And they have to make tawbah for that. They have to compensate for it by praying lots of nafil prayers. The 4 imams, however, obligate that all of those prayers need to be made up. But I don't hold that to be the correct position. Allahu A'lam.
Is that also a part of fasting?
According to the majority, yes. And I have no basis to differentiate between the two. Okay? But I just don't feel as comfortable with the leaving of the fasting But I also believe the same for the fasting is acceptable for a person. They've lost opportunity and it's gone, and they have to make tawbah for it. The safer position is the position of the majority, where you'd make them up. But I Allah Alam. And finally, we'll do. We'll just ask this. In the tashahhud, when you make dua after salawat on the Prophet ﷺ, is this limited to Quranic du'as, or can this be any dua in Arabic? Any dua in Arabic. And also, Labib, you can also add something in English. I believe that in the sunnah prayers this is okay. In obligatory prayers, I think you should avoid it. But absolutely, this is an open. In fact, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ said, then let him ask for whatever he wants, meaning as everything and anything goes. And then Simon says, I've seen people near the haram make touch random boulders on the road, thinking they are somewhat religious. Right. The funny part was how the people were queuing up the touch, and each person was more enthusiastic than the previous one. At some point, I questioned whether I'm missing something. Of course, this was a random boulder to prevent cars from mounting the pavement. It always is. It always is. All right, we'll call it there, inshallah. Yep, just one final one, yep.
Yeah, about the use of Allah, someone will not believe on Allah. Say Abdul Karim, now that Allah Hakim. Where I come from, people tend to actually discard Abdul and call him the name of Allah.
Yes.
Say Karim, Hakim, is that?
No, that's okay. In fact, that's actually perfect. So when you got Abdul Hakim, he's either got to be called Hakim or Abdul Hakim, or Abdul Rahim or Rahim. You know what I'm saying? Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت واستغفرك اللهم وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.